Welcome back to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. And I am joined here in the studio with a very special guest, Matthew Asner. You are the new director for Southern California for Autism Speaks, right?
Executive director.
Executive director. I left out the executive.
I used to be a director. Now I'm an executive
director. That's
director.
right. You used to be in television.
That's right.
And you, of course, you are part of a famous showbiz family.
I am.
Your father is Ed Asner.
Is Ed Asner.
Who
yes.
I just love, by the way.
Thank you. I love him too.
I bet you do. And
he's one of the good guys.
He's one of the good guys, and just one of my favorites on Mary Tyler Moore. I love it when he'd say, "You've got spunk."
That's right.
I hate spunk.
He used that recently.
He did?
Well, he's raising money for Autism Speaks, and he used "You've got spunk."
Okay.
You know,
good. Good. Well,
as his opening line of his letter.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
So, Matthew.
Yes.
Tell us how autism came into your world and how you came to be doing this job. Tell us about your journey or your path.
Okay. Well, about 24 years ago, my brother was born.
Okay.
And 8 years after that, 8 or 9 years after that, he was diagnosed with autism.
Okay.
I didn't know what autism was. The only thing I knew was it was this, thing that was in Rain Man.
Right.
And that's all I knew. And I also knew that some people were institutionalized, and that it was there was no coming back from that if you're headed to an institution if you had that diagnosis.
Okay.
But my brother was diagnosed with autism. He was high functioning.
Okay, what was the age difference between you and your brother?
I'm a lot older than he is.
Okay.
I'm let's see, he's 24. I'm 48 now, so
okay.
He's 24, so about 24 years.
Okay.
That makes it easy.
So were you around when he was a young boy to see any of his developmental issues?
I was out of the house. Mm-hmm. My parents are divorced, and he's the product of my dad and another woman, and was actually raised by another woman. So it's kind of a confusing Hollywood story.
Yes.
But I was never. I was not involved in his therapies or anything like that. And he, unfortunately, he was not diagnosed till 9.
Right.
So. He missed a lot of that valuable time.
Early intervention.
That's so important, you know, and especially with the news now that, they can start telling at 6 months.
Oh, yeah.
That's a pretty amazing thing. He's my phone is freaking out. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I would turn it off, but I can't.
It's not bothering me.
He is high functioning, and I would call him socially awkward.
Yes.
The typical autistic traits he has. Mm-hmm. He's 24, he's doing quite well. He's in college.
Good.
And I have a lot of faith in the fact that I think he'll be okay.
That's great. So, so despite the late diagnosis, he's been able to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but you have
That's
had
not my only
autism.
connection, though.
Okay, tell us about the other ones.
Well, I have a son who's 9 years old, Will, and he is, one of my prides and joys. My other son is Jake. He's almost 12, be 12 on Sunday. But Will was diagnosed about 5 years ago, and it was very difficult.
Yes.
Very difficult when your son is. It was a very different situation because my brother is one thing. I didn't have to deal with it emotionally, really. Yeah. I was out of the house, like I said. But when my son was diagnosed, it was very difficult. I remember it like it was yesterday. We were at the doctor. We were brought in. There's that horrible diagnostic meeting.
Yes. And
the doctor said to me, "You should really prepare yourselves because he'll probably never hold a job and he'll probably never live on his own." And hearing that was really difficult.
And Will was 4 or 5
at
the time?
5 at the time.
He was 5?
Yeah, 4, I'm sorry, he was 4 at the time.
Okay.
Just, a little, like halfway, 4.5. But it was really difficult because I thought to myself, well, how can a doctor be telling me in such a definitive way that a 4-year-old is never going to do these things?
Yeah.
So it made me very angry. And I remember walking in my car and feeling really bad, and just thinking to myself, why couldn't they have told me he'd had cancer?
Yeah.
Because it would have been so much easier. Because with cancer, you have a number.
There's a treatment.
And there's a number. There's an odd.
Right.
You know, the odds are there.
Right.
They're,
and with this,
you know,
it was so nebulous. And
yeah, you sit there and you're just kind of bowled over by the fact that this woman, this doctor, told me that he'll never, you know, be able to do anything. And, you know, one of the things that really got me through it was going to my first walk, you know, with Autism
Speaks.
Then after that, I became very involved in education rights and started fighting for special education against the cuts that are happening on almost like a daily basis.
And were you still in your television career during this time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Making my partner very angry.
Okay.
Because I was spending a lot of time away from, you know, from the office.
Yeah.
Doing that.
Right.
You know.
So you're advocating for your own child.
I am.
At this point.
Yeah.
And you're still working in the television world.
Yeah.
And
successfully.
Okay. And then what kind of changed to the point where now you decided to take this position on?
Well, in the work that I've done, and the advocacy work that I've done, and the, I would say, activist work I've done, I have never felt that alive. You know, as I feel helping people and getting people through things and building in this world. So I have a couple of close friends who are over at Autism Speaks, and that has been my family's charity of choice. And I said to them, you know, if I ever got the opportunity to change careers, I think I would do it because it just makes me feel so good. So I got a call from Philip Hain, who was the executive director of Southern California, and he said, I've been promoted. I'm, you know, now region. Now he's like the whole West Coast.
Okay.
And I'm looking for someone to fill my role, and I just said, oh, okay. And that was it. That was it.
Yeah.
Decision made.
You know, it's interesting how sometimes we don't choose our path; it chooses us.
Well, I think that's definitely what happened here.
That's what happened with me as well.
Yeah.
With Act Today.
Yeah.
You know, when my son was diagnosed, I started looking into everything possible about autism and learning everything I could. And in my situation, I have a Wyatt, and he's 10.
That's right.
And it was inconceivable to me because we got a late diagnosis. He could have been diagnosed at 2, but he wasn't diagnosed till 3. And then with PDD-NOS, which he was really moderately autistic.
Yeah.
And at 4, he finally got the diagnosis. And I'm sure, Matthew, you probably felt these same feelings. I thought, wait a minute, here I am, a television producer executive, I've got connections, I should be able to get this information easily. It was so difficult. Then to access services was so difficult. I thought, what about the single mom with 3 and 4 kids and 2 on the spectrum who has no money, no resources? What is she going to do? And I also vowed that if I ever had the opportunity, I would help. And ended up doing fundraising and ended up being executive director of Act Today. So we have very similar paths.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Yes, we do, because that's exactly why I got into this. Because I saw what they were doing. This is a couple of years back. I saw they were closing all of these classes in LA.
Yes.
Like probably about a quarter of the classes they were closing.
The special day classes?
Special day classes.
Okay.
And so I started fighting it and getting involved in exposing what was going on.
Right.
And it was invigorating.
Yeah.
And
something you were passionate about.
Yeah, and I realized that you know, my help is needed here.
Yeah.
You know, I can pour a lot of energy into this. I have a lot of energy to give.
Yeah.
And I can pour a lot of energy into this, and I think we can get somewhere. You know? I mean, look, I've been frustrated quite a bit.
Sure.
But, you know, I always have in the back of my mind that we're going to get through this.
Yeah.
You know, that people are going to start paying attention to us as a group.
Yes.
Because to me, that's the most important part. The most important part is not these factions. You know, it's not the thing that's splitting us apart. I believe this, you believe that.
Of course
okay?
not.
That's not what
a
it's
solution.
about. It's a solution. And it's that we start thinking as a group, and we start implementing change from our numbers.
I agree, and
That's
you know
the
what I
important
love about, I call it the UN model, and at ACT Today we love working with other organizations. We so much admire the work Autism Speaks does, because we can provide grants for treatment for children in care, but we can't do the legislative change. We don't have that kind of power the way Autism Speaks does.
And that's that, you know, and that's actually, you know, probably the main reason I gravitated towards autism, because I believe in a large organization.
Yeah.
I do. I believe in, because I believe that that can effectuate change.
It can affect change, and I think that that's really important. And for a lot of people that don't know, Autism Speaks was started by Bob and Suzanne Wright, who have a grandchild with autism. And Bob Wright, I worked at NBC, and I knew Bob and Suzanne from my days there. And it really took sort of, I call him a captain of industry, getting affected by this disorder, to see a group like this come about that's able to get the kind of funding and has the kind of connections that is needed to affect change. So, and a good example is we have a campaign, Act Today for Military Families, that we started a year and a half ago. And we've given out about $140,000 in grants to military families. And Joe Mantegna, the actor, did a public service announcement for us. Yes, he's a wonderful man. Now I got a letter from Suzanne Wright that they are taking this on legislatively. And they are pushing forward the Combating Autism Act to get our military families better benefits. So I believe we can work together. So I'm really happy you're in this job.
I think you're right.
You know, I've had many people say to me, why are there so many autism orgs? And I do believe that it would benefit us all to work together.
I agree. I think it's imperative.
Yeah. So
because I think that people need to realize, I mean, if you just look at legislative alone in terms of insurance reform.
Yes.
I think what Autism Speaks did for insurance reform was incredible.
Incredible.
And, you know, I think a lot of it happened because of what we did.
I agree.
And I think, you know, we can do that with other things, you know, and it's so important because our rights are at stake.
So how do you see this growing as a really almost a civil rights movement, and where do you see the near future?
Well, unfortunately, I think that we're going to have some rough times ahead.
Okay.
Because I think there's a lot of cuts that are coming. I know there's 900 million, unless there's some act of God that happens, that's going to be cut from special education alone this year, 2012, 2013. So I think we have to be prepared to really fight for our rights. And I think we have to be prepared for transitions into adulthood. That's another push that we're trying to do right now. We're starting to get very involved in that.
Yes, that's going to be, I agree with you, that's a huge issue, and we're looking at starting a special fund for young adults and older teens to help fund some of these programs.
Yeah, and I think it's also about educating employers.
Yes.
You know, trying to find incentives for them to hire people on the spectrum.
Yeah.
There's a company in Chicago called Aspiritech who hires I think only people on the spectrum to do their software testing.
Okay.
It makes sense.
Yes.
So we need to find more opportunities like that for people on the spectrum. And we have to listen to people on the spectrum. So hopefully I can get all that done. I can do a lot of that in my role here in Los Angeles, I'm hoping.